This show is brought to you by you. Yes, you, the listener. Thank you so much for listening to us, and thank you for all the patrons that support our Battlefield adventure. Wait for the middle of the show to know more about our Patreon, or just go to patreon.com/TheLankySoldier. Enjoy the show.
I think the idea is, though, they tried to implement the Battle Royale feeling into the Battlefield sandbox. So exactly what you're saying there. Like, there is a place for Battle Royale within Battlefield, and I actually think it's one of the best placed franchises for it. I actually believe that Battle Royale and Battlefield should go hand in hand. Bring in the squad play, bring in the teamwork, bring in the equipment that you have to, like, you know, one person's got the armor box, and so, like, you need to go to them for armor plates, or you need to go to this person for medic and supplies and things like that. You know, that all those concepts that Battlefield already has, I think can be applied to Battle Royale really well. And I actually think that the previous attempt, Firestorm, was a good attempt at a Battle Royale. I just think it came 2 years too late.
Ladies and gentlemen, Sweatlords and Casuals, welcome to BattlefieldOne Podcast, the only podcast on Spotify about Battlefield that actually cares about this godforsaken franchise. My name is Tom, also known as the Lanky Soldier, and today we have an exciting episode for you. Today I'm joined by Westie, a Call of Duty content creator. Okay, is it actually fair to call you a Call of Duty creator these days?
I mean, you can call me an FPS creator, and then, you know, we won't start a flame war in the comments.
Yeah, I think that's a more reasonable thing to do. But yeah, if you're a hardcore Battlefield player like us, you know, you've been playing Battlefield for a while, you definitely heard of Westie once in a while, you know, somewhere on the YouTubes or forums or whatever. You can probably called him a shillboy by some stupid chance because everyone has shills these days, it seems.
We've all done it once.
Yeah, we all done it once, yeah, we all done it once. I mean, technically, we both of us did went to events 2 years, so I guess we both shills.
Yeah, we're both shills. Yeah, let's just go with it, let's own it.
Yeah, hell yeah. And you know what's funny? The Level Cap is actually our dear friend Level Cap is actually hosting a podcast on his channel with Matimio, and they recently had chat frags on. So I'm just thinking, if we combine our podcast together, you know, I'll be the odd one out for obvious reasons because I'm not a big YouTuber, but it's just gonna be boomers just talking about Battlefield, how great it was back in the day. That would be literally
it would be the Battlefield Boomer podcast.
That's a name. Now that's a name. That's a name I can actually support. No, that's a name I can support. But yeah, before we continue with anything, so just a reminder, time codes, we have those. So if you don't want to listen to the whole thing, but I always recommend to do the whole thing, listen to the whole thing. We have time codes, use them, they're there for a reason. So if you're listening on Spotify, Apple Podcast, please do give us a rating because it does help people find the podcast, all that kind of stuff, so do it, so I can stop begging you to do it. Oh my god, you have no idea how much I beg people to do it.
Literally, I'm the same. The video on YouTube.
Yeah,
come on, guys. It's not hard.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not hard.
Yeah, it's just literally one click. You can do it, guys. You can do it. I believe in you. And I just want to apologize for everyone that this month's episode is a bit late. My co-host Ray was not available for this one because work stuff. So I have Westie now, and yeah, you're now full time now here, right? Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
So I had to apologize for that. This episode is a bit late for this month, and I only had Ray for 1 day of recording, so we decided to do a Patreon episode instead. So, you know, like, do we do a Battlefield one podcast or a Patreon one together? And we'll do Patreon because people actually pay for Patreon. That's kind of more important. And we talked about Delta Force, Cybertruck, and Fortnite. It was quite a funny conversation. So anyway, I apologize for the delay. As usual, patreon.com/TheLankySoldier if you want to listen to the episode. And like every episode, we have a Google Forms document in the description, so if you want to give us, you know, feedback, questions, anything, because if you don't have a social media account, I understand that, or you don't want to email us, just click on that Google Forms document in the description. Give any feedback, question, compliments, or insults you have on your mind. You know, tell us what kind of sexy people we are by playing Battlefield. And yeah, that's kind of it. So yeah, that's a bit of housekeeping out of the way. So let's talk about Battlefield a little bit. So this is how I want to structure today's episode. But never mind. This is how I want to structure the whole episode. So if we don't go off the rails, hopefully this episode is gonna be split into two parts. The first part, let's talk about you a little bit. how you started YouTube, how you talked about Battlefield, all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And the second half of the podcast, let's just talk about anything that is on our mind. Battlefield 2042.
Yeah, let's go for it.
Yeah, but let's not bitch about 2042 too much, because I'm pretty sure everyone heard the complaints and everything. I don't want to stay on that game too much, because let's keep it positive for once in a while. For sure. Yeah, for starters, would you okay to talk a little about yourself? How you started with YouTube. Introduce it to people that have no idea who you are.
Yeah, of course, absolutely. So yeah, I'm Westie. I've been a YouTube content creator since about sort of 2012. It's all started back with Battlefield 3. I was a Battlefield fan before that. I played the two Bad Company games. I joined the franchise with Battlefield Bad Company on, I think, PlayStation 3. I played it.
Yeah, same.
Which was when I didn't play any of the Refractor Engine games, so yeah, you can beat me up for that. But no, I was a fan from the Bad Company games, and I really started on YouTube just because I wanted to share clips with my friends, and at the time YouTube was basically a free video hosting service. It's not really what you'd call it's not the same as it is today. Everyone goes there for entertainment and things like that. I think a lot of people used YouTube back in the day simply because it was free to put videos on the internet, not many sites could claim to do that. So I just shared clips with my friends, and a lot of the time it was just stupid stuff in Battlefield that happened. And a couple of them just kind of got more views than I was expecting, because I'm just sharing these with my friends, right? I'm expecting 3 views because that's who I sent it to. And a few of them, they would get hundreds of views overnight, and I was like, wow, this is amazing. Where are all these people coming from? And then it kind of just sort of snowballed a little bit from there. I used to post up my videos on the BattlefieldOne forums. I knew Grizzle, BF Grizzle from back in the day, and he would post up my videos on there. And kind of sort of getting into Battlefield 3 with the DLCs. That's kind of where my channel really started to take shape. And then it really kicked in with Battlefield 4. That's when I was posting, 2 or 3 times a week, because I was really into making content and exploring the changes in the game and the updates and stuff like that. So that's how I really got started. But since then, it's been a massive journey. I'm sure the same for lots of people that you speak to. You go through all the various different games in different states of happiness and sadness, depending on how good or bad they might be.
Yeah, that's accurate way of putting it, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So you kind of just wandered your way through. So it went from it would have been Battlefield 3, then 4, then Hardline 1, 5, and then 2042. So yeah, and I mean, I kind of worked my way all the way through. I'd probably say straight off the bat that my favorite Battlefield game is Battlefield Bad Company 2. But I think the best Battlefield game, because I think they're two distinctly different things.
Yeah, the same approach for me. I don't have a favorite Battlefield game, but I do have snippets of parts of each Battlefield game that I really like, and I still don't have my perfect Battlefield. Funny enough, Battlefield 2042 was supposed to be my favorite game, because I've been asking for a game like that for 6-7 years before the game was announced. But it turned out it didn't turn out. Yeah.
So yeah, my favorite is Bad Company 2. And it's one of those things where I think your favorite is purely based on your own opinion, whereas I think I think you can be a lot more objective about what the best Battlefield game is. And I've kind of swung between Battlefield 3 and 4 for a long time. And I was actually thinking about it the other day when you said do you want to come on the podcast and let's do it on this day. So I thought I'll have a think about it. And I've got to be honest, the most fun, where I look at I was really enjoying the side of Battlefield, and every time I'd play a game, something good would happen. And that's got to be, I know it had a rough start, but Battlefield 4 is probably the best Battlefield game that's come out in the last decade, because it's actually over a decade now, isn't it? Because it was 2013.
Yeah, more than a decade, 2013.
Yeah, exactly. So it's just now going over that point, but. I mean, I don't know how many people would agree with me on that, but I think that almost, if you sort of zoom out again and you look and you're like, okay, so one of the last great Battlefield games was over a decade ago. That's a long time.
A lot of things happened in a decade. I mean, a lot of things happened. I mean, crap. Both of us, I think, started playing Call of Duty. We were, back in the day, 2014, 16, whatever, Battlefield 1, Battlefield 4, or even Battlefield 3. I was why would we play Call of Duty? Hell no. Why?
Yeah, why would you play this game? Why would you want to go and play, because what I used to think is that Call of Duty was a very shallow game in comparison to Battlefield.
That's what I thought, yeah.
It's 6v6, it's small maps, and everyone has perks. So like everyone's like a super soldier and they're running around like complete and utter idiots. And like, you know, to a large extent that still exists. But I always thought that it was a very shallow experience. And I think the reason that I moved to Call of Duty is not really for that side of the game, to be honest. It was the Warzone stuff, and it was the and I think most people know that like that version of Call of Duty when Warzone launched, you know, that came along at the perfect time. It was like the perfect storm. It was like what, a week before the world literally went into lockdown in 2020. I mean, like you can't recreate that. So by and large, I think Call of Duty has captured that audience purely out of luck. But Warzone was great fun, but like to gain that huge audience that much, and also to take so many fans of other FPS games and just bring them into your game, like you don't really manufacture that. I think there has to be a certain amount of luck behind something like that.
Yeah, like with any successes, there's a bit of luck in there. But you're right. I actually been saying that for like since a couple of years now. 2019 Modern Warfare, including with Warzone on top, was such a lightning in a bottle moment. That it was the right time, the right developers, the right people, the right ideas, and you know, whatever the case may be, everything was on point. I mean, sure, people bitched about the game, the maps and everything. You know what? That's nothing compared to everything else. It was such a positive influence on everyone. I mean, crap, even just the idea that, for example, they don't do loot boxes anymore. Just the simple idea is just like, you have battle passes now. That game changed everything for both of us, and like even people that don't play first-person shooters played Warzone.
Yes, absolutely.
It's just something about it, just like right at the moment, the right time, right talent, and everything just hit it right. And
I agree with you. Yeah. I agree with you, and I think that I think in that scenario, like, I feel that Battlefield has never quite had a moment like that. I actually agree. Yeah. There's been a lot of success, especially since, you know, the switch over to Frostbite, and you can see the success climb from that point, and it was very clear where EA wanted to take the game and who they wanted that game to compete against. So you can see the direction the game goes in, and obviously the popularity climbed, but I still don't really think... I mean, there's maybe one moment that I think you can point to where Battlefield had that lightning in a bottle moment. I think that was Battlefield 1.
Yeah, I want to say it was a Battlefield 1, yeah, that's also what I was thinking.
Yeah, because they revealed it, and like up until about 3 hours before the trailer dropped, nobody had a clue what was coming. And no one in their right mind would have sat there and went, do you know what I really want from my next Battlefield game? I want a World War I shooter. No one would have said that. Absolutely no one. And that was just why. It was that moment of like, I think it was like sheer shock and surprise from so many people. They were like, oh my God, they actually went and did something, because at the time everyone was like, it's going to be another modern game, whatever. No, completely different. They went all the way back, as far back as you could probably go for creating a first-person shooter, really.
You know what? I remember when the leaks started coming off of Battlefield 1, and we were doing Battlefield 1 podcast before this reboot. It's like, we were doing the podcast, and there was leaks about World War 1, Battlefield 1. Like, I think it came from a Swiss retailer or something like that. And all of us, 5 of us, just shat on that idea. Like, that's not happening. That absolutely not happening under no circumstance. This is fake news and so on. Not happening. And then, of course, it was announced. Oh my God, the dislikes went up. This is the most disliked episode we ever had in our lives. It's just like it was like 70% or 80% disliked, and the rest is like likes. Oh my God, I still laugh at that about that moment. It's like we shat on that idea, absolutely shat on it, and then it's like, no, that's a thing. Like, okay, yeah.
I mean, this is the thing. I count myself really lucky because I got an opportunity to play the game early, and so I got to basically sit in a room, and a DICE dev sat in front of me and went, right, so this is our new game. We've made like a 2-minute video. This is what you're going to play later today. And then it started playing. And like it just started with this like huge suit of armor soldier with a massive like machine gun in his hand. And then we saw like these like cloaks, like green cloaks for the Italians, and we saw these like dark like grey coats for the Germans. I was like, hang on a minute, this is like World War stuff. And then we realized it wasn't World War II, it was World War I. Because then the horses came into it, and we were like, oh my God, what have they created?
Oh my God,
it was absolutely insane. Yeah, the horses were something completely different.
We had so many jokes after the reveal about Battlefield 1, about the horses, because we know how Battlefield mechanically was, you know, how just like physics work and everything. So we were just joking. What about you put dynamite on a horse, and the horse flies, and the legs just get chopped off while flying? Like, you know, those just like those Battlefield moments, but with a horse, just a flying horse with no legs, like with the diamond attached or something like that. It's just, we would make it, we were making so many jokes about it. It's just like, oh, but yeah, Battlefield 1 was definitely one of those games.
I think that's the only one in the Battlefield franchise you can point to as that lightning in a bottle moment.
Yeah.
And to be honest, it sounds really bad, but like, okay, it launched really well. It had some incredible numbers, but I think they largely failed to capitalize on
I
the
did not have fun playing Battlefield 1 that much. I remember I was complaining about the different, not mechanically. Mechanically, I think it was fine, but there was loads of things around the game that I did not enjoy that much. It was lacking after you know, we had something with Battlefield 4, even Battlefield 3, and it's like something was lacking.
Something didn't quite. I mean, I always described it as towards the, when you look back at the entire thing, especially at launch, I think it was very style over substance. I think there was a lot of like, we've created this really impressive game. We're doing a World War I shooter, and everyone's like, wow, that's amazing. And then it launched, and it had like, we had like, what, 16 primary weapons, and everyone's like, okay, I kind of get it because it's World War I, and you know, the weaponry wasn't as varied as perhaps it is in modern day. But you know, you come to expect a certain amount from a first-person shooter, regardless of the context of it, and it didn't really deliver. And so it started off with like this initial like boom of like, yeah, I'm really excited to play this game. I'm sure you remember like player numbers for that game dropped off quite quickly, like a lot quicker compared to like Battlefield 4, a lot quicker. It's like I say, yeah, they just kind of largely failed to capitalize on the excitement that they had.
It's a useless talent of mine to go through history of Battlefield, that everything happened with the games, and it's stuck in my head. It's such a random, useless talent that is not useful. Well, I don't know.
It's useful for this podcast, sure.
I mean, yeah. Subscribe to Patreon, patreon.com/TheLankySoldier. Early access and not free. But yeah, Battlefield 1 is definitely one of those games. The Battlefield 5 is a completely different story. But yeah, going back on just YouTube and everything. Well, why Battlefield though? Why, or like, because I remember Flackfire was on our other podcast, and we asked him why he decided to make a channel about Battlefield. So I'm gonna ask you the same question: why Battlefield?
I think it came from the fact that when I got into playing first-person shooters, I think there was a game, I think it was on PlayStation 3, I don't know if you've heard of it, it was called Brothers in Arms, Hell's Highway.
Yeah.
And like, that was the first FPS on a console I ever played. Like, my first actual console that was mine was a PS3, so I wasn't like, you know, young when I was playing video games. Like, before that, I used to like play football and stuff like that, so I kind of got into games into... Oh, I played left wing, I was a left footer. So,
right back myself.
There you go. But, yeah, so I kind of just... That was the first FPS game that I played. And so it wasn't your run-and-gun Call of Duty game. Like, it wasn't that frame of game, really. Like, Brothers in Arms Hell's Highway was largely like a single... That's what I played it for, like the story, the single player. So when it came to, like, other shooters and stuff, I was like, I looked at Call of Duty and I was like, that doesn't look like fun to me, because I'm like, that looks way too fast and twitchy, and I'm like, I don't know if that's going to be that fun. And one of my friends said, oh, you should play Battlefield instead. And I was like, oh, what's that? And he was like, oh, he described it, and I remember to this day, he's like, it's like Call of Duty, but a bit slower. So as to a complete, like, someone who doesn't know anything, at that point, I didn't really know anything about Call of Duty. I didn't know anything about Battlefield. But, like, I'd said that I didn't really like the way, like, Call of Duty looked. It was like, it's all twitchy, it's all jumpy, and I was like, I didn't really like that. And he was like, so it's like Call of Duty, but slower. And I was like, oh, okay, all right, I'll give it a go. So he was like, play Bad Company, because you've got a PS3, so get Bad Company, and just play the single player and play some of the multiplayer and see what you think. And I loved it. The single player was great. I mean, the single player for Bad Company, I think Bad Company and Bad Company 2, they're the best single players of any Battlefield game anyway.
Well, to be fair, it's not really a high bar to go for, because there's not like a lot of single player games Battlefield has.
Not particularly, no, but I liked the fact that Bad Company had that single player element to it, and I think like David Goldfarb and the team that worked on that single player, the story and stuff, you know, I think they did a great job. Like, the characters are very memorable and the story is very memorable. But when I played the multiplayer, I was like, I actually understand what this guy meant. It is like Call of Duty because it's got all like the modern guns and it had certain attachments, pistols, grenades, equipment, classes, and stuff like that. But it was slower paced. Like you didn't run around like an absolute hooligan playing that game. And I really got into Rush. And I don't know if it was called Rush in Bad Company. I think it was called Gold Rush in Bad Company 1 because it was about
Bad
blowing
Company
up.
1, yeah. I think it was called something else.
I think it was called Gold. Like, I think it was Gold Rush, and it was it 8v8 because it only had 16 player on PS3. I think it only had was it 24 players? So it might have been.
I don't remember actually.
I think on console it had less players in multiplayer than on PC because PC had 16 versus 16 because it was 32 player, and that's where I ended up moving to a few years after that. But that's what made me fall in love with it. It was the Rush game mode. It was like, okay, it's 2 teams of however many players. You move forward and you like use cover and you throw smoke grenades down. You blow up walls and like you go try and arm the MCOM and then the enemy team disarm it and then you come back up and try and do it again. Oh, and then a vehicle gets involved and like I liked that a lot more than Call of Duty where you jump around a corner and like I've covered the entire map in 20 seconds. Whereas in Battlefield I was like, oh, this map goes on forever. Like there's 4 more sets of MCOMs we've got to blow up first. And I really liked that. I liked that more like expansive gameplay. I liked the fact that there was vehicles in there, so it wasn't always just like infantry focus, even though Bad Company largely was a more infantry focused game than other Battlefield games as it transpired. But there were still vehicles in there. And that's what really got me going. And of course, it also helped that one of my friends played the game. So when you're first getting into a game, like if you don't know how to play it, like playing it on your own can be really quite like lonely and a bit like, oh, I don't really understand it, or it can be very. If something bad happens, it's really easy to be put off and be like, no, I'm just not going to play again. Whereas if you play a game with your friends, you're like, oh, something bad happened, doesn't matter. My friend knows how to play, so he'll just guide me through it, and he'll help me out, this, that, and the other. And that's largely what we did for like a few months until I got into it. And that was it. And I actually remember playing Bad Company. And the only reason I knew that Bad Company 2 existed is because on the in-game menu, they used to have those scroll bars at the bottom that would tell you like latest updates.
Promoting the other games, yeah.
It promoted the beta for Bad Company 2. I had no idea it was out. And I think Bad Company 2 beta was... What was it? It was the snow map where you parachuted in and it was like Rush. And I can't remember. We go down the hill and... It was the first set of MCOMs in like a staging area. But yeah, and then that's the only reason I knew there was another Bad Company game coming out. I was like, oh my God, there's a new Battlefield game. I'm going to play this now. So that's kind of how I got into playing Battlefield games. But I never shared any content from that point. Like I didn't have anything to share my content on. I didn't even know that like there was a YouTube scene where people played video games and posted up videos and stuff like that. That only really came when I got into PC gaming and with Battlefield 3. And that was when I started playing with playing with the same group of friends, but they were like, they didn't want to play on console anymore. They're like, we bought gaming PCs, and I had a job at the time, and I was like, oh, I can afford like a mid-range gaming PC, so I got one, and I started playing, and that's where I had the opportunity. Then it's much easier to record gameplay when you're playing on PC, true. than it is on console, and we would just share clips with each other, especially because like something would happen. And your teammates couldn't see it because, of course, like streaming wasn't really as prevalent back then. So, like, you could just, like, be recording and then later on after you'd finished, you'd just, like, cut up, like, a 20-second clip and then just put it on YouTube and show your friends what was happening. And, honestly, it came from the fact that we loved Battlefield from a couple of years before. And then suddenly, on YouTube, I was like, oh, a couple of people actually started watching these clips. That's kind of interesting.
It's just... I was thinking about it like for a really long time, and as I gone older, I realized it's not the particular like the game I loved or wanted, but the reason why I even started to do like the podcasting or start my YouTube channel and everything, it's mostly like reasons like it's the social aspect of video games. Like I'm not really I do enjoy a good single player game once in a while, but I'm so picky with single player games. I'm so picky. Multiplayer games always been kind of my thing, just because I enjoy the social aspect of it. So that's why I can start doing the YouTubes and everything. It's because I want to talk about the social things that happened, in my video games that I play, whatever those games are, Call of Duty, Battlefield, or Medal of Honor, if anyone remembers that game. Like I do enjoy the social aspect of video games. It's always that's why I even got into video games in the first place. I mean, crap, the first time I ever played a video game was on a PS1 with 2 controllers, with a friend or a family member.
The split screen stuff,
yeah. Then the PS3 stuff came in and all that kind of stuff. Like I like FIFA. I used to play a lot of FIFA. We used to have like FIFA tournaments, 8 people just playing against each other and see who's the best and so on. Like that's why I enjoy mostly about video games. I treat it like a sport, I would say. Not like esports or everything, but just this sense of like competing, for just having fun in the sense of it's some sort of competition. So it's always attracted me when it comes to like video games and so on. I'll ask you this because like I'm glad you mentioned like early on this episode that Battlefield means a lot of different things to people, and me and Ray been saying this forever now because DICE reinvents the wheel with every new game. Every couple of years. It's like you don't know what Battlefield is anymore because everyone has a different opinion what Battlefield is.
For sure.
It's just I don't even know how to describe that feeling because it's just like everyone has a different opinion about what Battlefield's supposed to be. But for you personally, what Battlefield how would you describe Battlefield to like I don't even know how to even ask that question. What Battlefield stands for you?
Okay, so what does Battlefield stand for me? I think Battlefield is a large multiplayer first-person shooter with infantry and vehicles and classes. That's what I think it is. At its very core, that's what I think it is. That's a very technical explanation of the parts of a Battlefield game, or what I expect from a Battlefield game anyway.
Yeah, which is fair.
Which is fair, and I think, but in terms of like a gameplay experience, so take all those features, what does that actually equal? I just think it means utter chaos. I think that's what it is. I mean, and I'm talking of like the Conquest game mode, the classic Battlefield experience, 5 flags, 2 teams, that whole thing. But I would largely agree with what you said, is that, over a long period of time, actually, and I think this goes all the way back to the Refractor Engine games, which I didn't play, but I've spoken to a lot of people about what that Battlefield experience used to be like. Battlefield has changed so much over the lifetime of its existence that people largely don't really know what they're going to get from a Battlefield game these days. And I think the latest release, 2042, and the previous one, Battlefield 5, I think it muddied the waters even more. Yeah. Because what we moved away from with Battlefield 4 was a very community-focused experience where the tools were all there and the community could choose to play, the DICE preferred way. You could play on official servers with official rule sets. But if you wanted to, you had the freedom to create your own version of Battlefield with different modifiers and different scoring techniques or, different damage and all that kind of stuff. There was a lot more freedom around Battlefield. So I would say that with 5 and 2042, that DICE they locked that down a lot. And it kind of started with Battlefield 1, I think, as well. But I don't look at Battlefield 1 in that way because it was the first game to kind of curate the experience quite hard. Whereas DICE kind of doubled down on it with Battlefield 5 and massively with 2042. I think they really, really doubled down on it because they replaced classes, which had some flexibility, with essentially heroes. That's what they did. They replaced them with hero characters. And
I remember I was reading somewhere, I can't remember what was it, but it was an interview with the developer. Or maybe, I don't know if it was like a private interview or whatever. I don't know how I got this information, but I know it was legit. I remember one of the developers said that the reason we went with heroes for Battlefield 2042 to make people care about these specific characters, because if they have personalities, you will care. I mean, which is fine, but I think that's more like on a single player. It's for lore people that care about lore. Me and Ray always bitch about the Battlefield universe, right? That there's no connection between all of them. Whatever, it's just like there's nothing. It's it's not a Marvel Cinematic Universe per se, of course not. But we do expect some sort of general idea, because there is a lot of things they could do to expand the actual franchise to be something more than just run and gun and shoot in a big open field with guns and with tanks flying or tanks planes. We think there can be something more. So it's just the fact that maybe attempted to do with Heroes. I think they went completely... It doesn't work. Heroes don't work in Battlefield.
No.
It just doesn't work.
I don't think they work at all. And I think that, like, that there are certain parts where I did care. Like, I cared about Irish because I knew who Irish was. And, like, because he'd existed in the Battlefield universe at some point before, and a lot of people would instantly look at the Irish character and be like, oh, that's from Battlefield 4, or that's the medic from Battlefield 3, because it was the same guy that did it all. And, you know, like, there's a link there. But I think with the what they called them, was it specialists they called them, I think?
Yeah, I think they were specialists, yeah.
I know what they tried to do. They basically, first of all, like you say, they tried to make people care about the characters, and, like, but you didn't really give me a reason to care about them. Like, why should I care about them? The other thing is I think it made it much more simple for people to look at a character and understand what they should do with it. But I actually think they implemented a worse system than what they had before. Because beforehand, they had 4 classes. So you had 4 different types or 4 different archetypes of player. So, like, if you want to play medic, you knew exactly what you had to do. And you knew what guns you were going to get, right? If you wanted to play support, you knew what you had to do. Recon, you knew what you had to do. And, like, it's very, very simple. And I think what they tried to do is inject a little bit of, like, personality and flair. But by having so many specialists, which kind of, a lot of them sort of overlapped each other, because they ended up grouping them back into classes anyway. Like, they did was just create mini classes within it. They were subclasses underneath, like, a top heading. And I don't really think people needed that guidance. And what I ended up with was some really cheesy, corny voice acting, which didn't really work very well.
Oh my god, yeah, the jokes were just writing themselves. I don't know what that... I actually don't know, I don't know what they were thinking. like you're selling this post-apocalyptic setting, and then you have those voice lines in the game, I'm like, at one point someone had to say, I think this is stupid.
And do you know what? I think there was somebody at the top of that project. I don't have any information, but I think the person, whoever was in charge, just didn't say no enough. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's actually true. Yeah,
you've got to have strong leadership at the top, and you know, we know, like, as Battlefield fans, we pay attention to this stuff. There were quite a few developers that left DICE after Battlefield 5. There was a big shake-up.
Oh, it was a big exodus of people. Yeah,
big exodus.
I have a friend who's a developer. He left after right before that. It's like, so he was one of the people that left.
And I'm not surprised. There were some big names, and, like, with a lot of experience as well, that left their positions, who'd been at DICE for a long time, and, like, even now, like, after 2042, like Lars Gustafsson, who literally was one of the people who created Battlefield, he no longer works for DICE. So, you know, they've had a big turnover, and I think what had happened is that they were kind of partway through a project. Lots of people left because they wanted to do something else because the previous project hadn't done that great. And then it left sort of like a bit of a vacuum. And so someone just had to sort of fill the gap. And that person maybe, like perhaps with the specialists, they should have just said no. Like, it's very obvious, obviously with having hindsight, it's so obvious to say that this, you know, they shouldn't have done it.
It's easy for us to say that, right? When we're not in there working.
But I think if you look at the past of how Battlefield games has worked, no previous Battlefield game has not had, like, the 4 or 5 class system that previous Battlefield games had. I think Battlefield 2 had more than that amount of classes. Didn't it have, like, 7 or 8 or something like that? But you know what I mean? It still had those defined classes, and then they just decided it's one of the core pillars of Battlefield, in my opinion. And they kind of just ripped it up and just went, no, we're going to do something different. And I'm like, what evidence have you got to support that that's going to work? And they didn't really have any evidence, and I think it's because somebody at the top was kind of like, yeah, that's fine, let's keep going. And they just didn't maybe have the strong will to be like, no, this is not how Battlefield works. We should stick to classes, because that's what people know. That's how people perceive our game. Because, you know, if you even got a passing idea of what Battlefield is, you should know what I say when I say the word classes. You should kind of know what we're talking about.
Hey there, I hope you're enjoying the discussion that we're having. Like I said at the start of the episode, I will tell you all about our amazing Patreon that is helping us keeping the show going. Patreon.com/TheLankySoldier.
Some Patreon exclusiveness. We here at Patreon would love for
You sound like every nerd in all the, like, 90s TV shows.
By becoming a patron, you're not only supporting the show, but you're also getting a lot of content back. First up, you'll get ad-free early access to all our future episodes. You can already listen to our previous episodes ad-free by just joining the Patreon for free. That's right, no more waiting, no more interruptions, just pure, unfiltered Battlefield content straight to your ears before anyone else gets to hear it. Well, of course, that's not all. We're also giving you a behind-the-scenes look at what goes into making Battlefield 1 podcast and other shows we make, from planning sessions to recording mishaps, and everything in between. You'll get an insider's perspective on how we bring each episode to life. And the reason why I'm saying
I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's your fault.
It's all my fault.
It's all your fucking fault, Ray. You ruined the whole show. We need to cancel it again.
Just gotta fucking can it for another 8 months again. Just appear out of nowhere with
we need to cancel it again.
Colors.
Ray, what the fuck did you do? And for those of you craving even more content, we got you covered with extra videos that you won't find anywhere on my main channel. And for our gold tier supporters, the main tier at our Patreon, we're offering access to our exclusive podcast series Live Gaming Gathering Extra, or LGG Extra for short. This is a show where my friends and I gather together to talk about everything from the video game industry to movies or anything that is on our minds. With more than 30 episodes already available, there's hours and hours of content for you to listen. Trust me, they are some of the most fun and amazing conversations we ever had, because it's just being us, relaxed and actually having fun.
Alright, I think we need to move on because we've been kind of on this subject for about the last 15 minutes now.
Yeah.
We got a couple of things in order.
Are you feeling better now? Let this
Yes,
alone.
Yeah, you got that off your chest.
I do feel better. Oh no, wait, one more thing. For example, Angelo... we were in discussion.
I'm not gonna mention any names.
And trust me, you won't want to miss anything we discuss in the future. But wait, there's more. We also have another early access and ad-free show about Call of Duty called Lockdown Player. So if you're a fan of multiple franchises, we got something for you too. And of course, I believe in keeping our patrons informed. I also post monthly updates to let you know what to expect in the upcoming month, so you'll know what to expect in the future if you're not sure about the content we're posting. And because we're confident that you'll love the content we're creating, we offer a free trial that you can use anytime. We believe that we're making good content that will make you stay in the long run, and I will not be offering a free trial if I do not believe that. Battlefield 1 podcast was rebooted back in March 2023. We learned a lot of lessons from our previous shows that consisted of 41 episodes, and we've been building an amazing foundation for the future of this current show. There's a reason why we're the only Battlefield related podcast available on Spotify, and we had the honor being listened to by DICE developers themselves, and now we want to share even more with you through our Patreon. So if you want to support the show and get all these amazing extras, head over to patreon.com/TheLankySoldier. Your support means the world to us and helps us keep delivering the content you love. Thank you for being part of our Battlefield community, and we look forward to seeing you on our Patreon. Now, let's go back to the show. Battlefield 2042 in general is... I don't think... Well, it's easy to say, oh, you could done that and that and that. It's... Yeah, like you said, hindsight is a thing. But I think this game had just, like, too many ideas and not enough time to improve those ideas, because like Hazard Zone was definitely an afterthought because we needed something in a game to make it $70.
Absolutely.
There's so many things of like class, specialists, the big maps and everything. Clearly, oh my god! I remember there was an interview. There was a developer that worked on Battlefield 2042, and he came in and he was telling how DICE had a problem, like. They had this like memory leak or something like that it was basically crashing the game non-stop. They couldn't figure out why it was crashing the game in the development process, right? They couldn't figure out. Someone found out it was the HUD elements for the vehicle that were crashing the game. Right. And I don't understand how, because like something multiplied or something, I don't know. So just the HUD element itself of a tank was crashing the whole game early in development. And I'm like, well, I guess game development is a bitch.
Yeah, and like, don't get me wrong, I'm not going to sit here and say it's easy to make a game. It's just that I think with 2042, I totally agree with your opinion there, which is that there were some ideas, and they had they done a better job with implementing the specialists, like a lot of people said, the specialist tone, like the tone of the characters, didn't fit the tone of the game that had been built. Like, you wanted to create this like semi-post-apocalyptic worlds in climate crisis kind of vibe. You know what? I could get behind that for a Battlefield game. That sounds pretty cool. But then when you've got Angel screaming, "Angel does it again," and it just right?
That was something.
But you know what I mean? Like, the two didn't work. Like, you could have done specialists, but I think they all needed to be a lot more grounded in the story and the narrative that they were trying to create. Same thing with Hazard Zone. Hazard Zone could have been incredible. Like, they've created this, they thought this game mode where you go into an exclusion zone, you've got certain high tier items that you need to collect and gather, and your team is responsible for getting them in, getting in, collecting them, and then making it out by any means necessary. So you're going to be going in fighting other players because those players want those resources. And that sounds like a cool game mode. That sounds like a lot of team play and squad play that would be perfect for a Battlefield game. But what we got was a really, really underbaked version of that. Like, so underbaked, it's unbelievable that they even thought it could be considered as a good core pillar of the game. Like, absolutely unreal. Like, you could play 4 or 5 rounds and have enough currency to then just buy all of the upgrades that you wanted for next time for, like, the next 25 games. It was unbelievably poorly balanced, and like, there was no tension in the modes. There was no build up, and because they wanted the characters to, you know, have some lore behind it and mixed in with the mode, but after launch they decided to cancel a lot of the lore stuff because the response of the game didn't go down very well, and it was all hands on deck. You know,
Ray keeps saying that the reason they changed plans regarding the lore is because also the actor that played Irish also passed away. So
I wouldn't be surprised if there was an element of that. I wouldn't be surprised.
He's really adamant about that. That they actually put, no matter how the game was received, they had like something planned, but because he, you know, passed away, it kind of ruined all the plans. That he's really adamant about that. Maybe he's right, God knows. But I have to agree in a sense to him. Irish was such an iconic character. Like the way he just in that cinematic Exodus short movie. It's like. But that's the category 6 storm, whatever. Nah, that's home field advantage. No one can can deliver that line so fucking cool as that actor. It's just like, oh yeah, you're okay. I hated you back in Battlefield 4. I fucking love you now.
yeah, absolutely. And then when you see him and he pulled this hood down and like you saw the character and you're like, oh, it's Irish. And the amount of people, I remember going on social media after that dropped, and everyone was like, okay, this is cool. You're creating not just a new Battlefield game, but you're sort of linking together things from the past, which immediately a lot of people, I mean, you saw the reaction, right? People got behind that straight away. They were like, yes, I like this. This is cool. You're introducing a character that... Yeah, that short film was so good. It was so good.
It's the best thing that came out of this game, funny enough. Like, I don't even need the game. Make a movie out of this, please.
Yeah, absolutely. And do you know what? I wouldn't have been surprised that there were more of those planned. And exactly what you said is that because, unfortunately, the actor did pass away, a lot of their plans would have changed. And it's really sad that that's happened, but you could see where they were kind of going with it. And had they been able to go further forward with it, they might have succeeded more with the whole specialist thing, because there would have been some understanding and some storyline behind each of the characters, right? Because we still, you know, largely, you don't really know much about the specialists anyway.
Yeah, specialists. I still don't think it will work just because you have specialists on both sides. There's no really factions. It's just Clone Wars basically.
Yeah. I agree. But the thing is like, you know, you could have easily done it with the specialists, where like, you know, they had, I don't know how many specialists did they have at launch. I can't remember.
I think it was 7 or 6,
something like that. But what you could have done is you could have had 2 assault ones, 2 medic ones, and just had them on each side of the conflict, and then had them, you know, because obviously it doesn't matter that they had the same abilities. If they were just different characters, then you would have known it was one side versus the other. And you know that I think that would have been a lot more understanding. But because they made them, what did they call it? It was like faction agnostic or something like that. It meant you were just, it was McKay fighting McKay, and you know, and then the voice lines all overlapped each other, and it just didn't work.
I remember. I don't know if it was a conversation or something like that, but I remember I was saying that Modern Warfare 2.19 did right regarding the characters. Like, they could literally had no factions, but they had factions. And I remember when Cold War beta was happening, they only had like 7, maybe 6, you know, operators to use, and they were both on sides. The only way you could tell the difference between teams is literally the HUD elements.
Oh yeah.
So I remember there was a big complaint from Call of Duty players, like, listen, we don't want this, because Battlefield 2042 literally had the same thing. We don't want same people on the same factions. So before launch, they did reacted to the feedback, and they did split them into factions. You can tell it was a really rushed job, because the characters, like the numbers don't match. You know, this one has like, this side has like 5, and this one has 3 or something like that. You know, it was clearly a last minute decision according to the feedback. So yeah, it's just the Clone Wars, characters on both sides that doesn't bond well with me regarding that. I might as well mention that, like, as we talked, I was saying we're not gonna talk about Battlefield 2042 that much, but here we are. Might as well talk about the flavor of the year that is Delta Force Hawk Ops.
Ah, yes.
What's your opinion about that?
I'm looking at it from a slightly different perspective than perhaps I would have looked at it from a few years ago. Obviously, having spent a lot of time not playing Battlefield as much as I used to, I look at Delta Force more from the extraction side than the, how shall we say, Battlefield-inspired side. It's because I spent a lot of my time playing Battle Royale games and more recently extraction shooters. But I did actually manage to get away to TwitchCon and play Delta Force for like 2 hours. I didn't actually get to play in that technical test they've just done because I did.
Oh, you haven't played Alpha, right? Okay.
I haven't played that version because I didn't get a code, but I did play it for I think 2.5 hours.
You didn't get a code? I got it, but you didn't.
No, I didn't get a code. And then they screwed up by saying, "Oh, please don't." And they were like, "We would prefer it if you don't stream the technical test."
Yeah, I know they mentioned that you don't stream it. Yeah, I know they mentioned that.
But the thing is they kind of messed up because they said we prefer it if you don't. But you didn't say you couldn't, so people just did, which is why it all ended up all over like Twitch and YouTube. That's why it happened, yeah. Because
I purposely did not stream the game because I was told, please don't stream it.
Yeah, and that's the thing. They were like, yeah, we prefer if you didn't. And then some people did, and they were kind of like, well, it was either they basically ban all the streamers that were streaming it and revoke their access, or they kind of just let it go. And that's exactly what they did. They just let it go.
Fair enough.
So from my point of view, Delta Force, let's remove how close it looks like this game could be to Battlefield.
It's not even that. Battlefield 2042.
Yeah.
Dear God, so many similarities.
So many similarities. But if you actually look at a shooter that's coming onto Battlefield's turf to provide competition, I think that's a good thing.
That's a good thing, yeah.
I think Battlefield has needed competition for a long, long time, but no studio has really committed to doing it as close as Delta Force has. Because Delta Force has literally just gone, we're just going to do Battlefield. Is that okay? Or Battlefield 2042. We're just going to do it.
There was another game, World War 3.
World War 3. Yeah, okay, yes. Right, World War 3 did kind of go for it, but as it looks like, it's just kind of... Even when it first came out, did you play it in that really early version of it?
Yeah, I did. I played all the versions because I actually do like the idea what they went with World War 3. I'm kind of surprised that people don't really like it that much.
I thought it was a great idea. It's just, unfortunately, I don't think they handled it particularly well. I think perhaps they got a lot more attention than they were expecting very early on. And it kind of just made them stutter and falter a little bit. I mean, I know...
Server problems were a big problem they had. Yeah, that was a big problem. I remember that.
They did have some... And do you know what? I think that just comes from, like, increased expectation. Because, of course, as soon as you get more eyeballs on it, they're like, oh, okay, well, we best... And you get a little bit... Maybe they got a little bit carried away with more attention and all this kind of stuff. It may well have been that they just sort of burnt out that way. But... that may be the only other game that's really come close. I'm trying to think of other games that maybe have done this. I mean, Modern Warfare 2019 did Ground War, which was a very, very arcade version of
It
Conquest.
was. I have a friend who never really enjoyed Battlefield, but he really enjoyed Ground War because it's like, this is like a very simple version of Battlefield. I'm like, yeah, I think it's accurate.
It kind of is. It was just like mega spam of vehicles and kill streaks, which is kind of what ruined it for me because I was like, I would prefer if we could focus on, fighting for the objectives rather than running for cover every 5 seconds because somebody got a precision airstrike. But, I think in general, if you remove the fact of how close Delta Force actually seems to be to what Battlefield is, I think competition for Battlefield is a really good thing because for quite some time now, I think where DICE hasn't had competition or where Battlefield hasn't had competition, they haven't produced the best version of Battlefield that they could make. I think that's quite obvious.
I actually agree with that, yeah.
And whereas now, I think that this game, Delta Force, they're going to go into alpha very soon. Might probably be alpha by the time this launches. There's going to be more people looking at it. later on this year, they'll probably go for a full release. It's free to play as well, which is massive.
Yeah, that's a big factor, yeah.
That's absolutely massive. And they're going to launch probably 12 months before the next Battlefield game. Like, that gives them full opportunity to not only launch a product that is like Battlefield and potentially, garner a big audience there, but also, after launch, refine the experience and create something that their community enjoys even more than what launched. So, actually, this is an opportunity for a competitor to come in and sort of steal a lot of Battlefield's thunder, whilst Battlefield is kind of sleeping because they're in the middle of development for their next game. So,
yeah, I'm kind of worried about Delta Force the same way I was worried about World War 3. It's like it here clearly has the foundation to be a really good game that can scratch that itch for Battlefield type of experience. Doesn't have to be a Battlefield as long as he has some kind of similar experience. But I'm also getting the same feeling that this might not stay, because as soon as Battlefield and as soon as the next game is announced, they show the trailer, everyone's gonna forget about Delta Force. But if they play their cards right, they can actually stay a bit longer, but they have to be really precise. That's the problem. Video games these days, it's so hard to stand out. Like, no matter how good your game is, it's really hard to stand out. And me and Ray finally realized, wait, the only thing that makes you stand out these days in this video game industry is the brand.
Yes.
The brands are so important and big these days. It's like, if this game was called something else, not Delta Force, I don't think people would care that much. But because it's a brand from 10, 15 years ago that's somewhat familiar with, and the brand got picked up by Tencent, right? If they're the ones on, yeah. So, if this was not called Delta Force, it was called something, I don't know, Battlefield Shooter...
Generic shooter
Generic
2024.
Yeah, Generic Shooter 2024, yeah. No one would care. So that's the problem with I don't know if the game has the legs. It has the foundation to be really good. It has when it comes to mechanics, just play the game. I think Delta Force is fantastic. No matter what kind of carbon copy we might think this is from other games, I think that gameplay-wise, it's a really fantastic shooter. Like, it feels really satisfying to shoot. Movement feels not restricted in a good way, like we love Call of Duty and everything, but we do, I think both of us agree that sometimes even Call of Duty can go a bit crazy with its movement mechanics and everything.
Yep.
And kind of Battlefield 2022 also can be like maybe. So it's nice to have some sort of limitations to make your character sure that it actually stays on your character stays on the floor. It's actually a real life, wannabe soldier.
Absolutely.
Not super soldier, and it's really hard to do these days because, do you want to go more realistic or you want to go more arcadey? Like, people go to the extremes these days. Like, we want realistic, okay, go play Squad. We want arcadey, okay, play Call of Duty. There's no middle ground, and that pisses me off.
Do you know what? I agree with pretty much everything you've just said, because I think there's a real temptation, especially in first-person shooters at the moment, to have some kind of movement mechanics in the game.
And I'm just saying, Titanfall, goddammit, why are you not playing Titanfall?
Yeah, go play Titanfall.
I love Titanfall.
But, you know what I mean? Like, there's a real, because I think it's been driven, especially in the Call of Duty scene, people talk about it all the time. They want tac sprint, they want crouch sliding, and all this kind of stuff, and I can tolerate it, but for me, it's not a driving factor of why I want to play a game. For some reason, it seems to be that a lot of people want these movement things. And I feel like sometimes people want movement so that they can express themselves in the game, right? Whereas I think, like what you've said with Delta Force, they've actually created quite a grounded movement system, and they've created a good gunplay system. I don't actually feel like I need anything else, because what the other part that they've created, the gunplay system, actually feels really nice, and they've worked on it enough that it's satisfying enough that I don't need to be sliding across the screen and ledge grabbing and jumping and doing all this stuff, because I'm like, well, I know what my role is, I know what I need to do, and when I fire my gun, it feels pretty satisfying to fire it, so I don't really need that whole movement side of it.
Exactly. Yeah.
So yeah,
that's how I feel about Delta Force. No matter what kind of carbon copy is, I think it's a good game with good foundation.
And it's going to be interesting to see, like you say, when it launches, like where they're going to go with it, because like you say, I think because it is like it's got two prongs, right? Well, in fact, it's got three. It's got the single player, which people will play, but I would be honest, I'm largely not interested in that, to be honest.
Yeah.
I think, and they're not really focusing on it with their marketing either. Then you've got the extraction mode, which I'm really interested in because I've spent the last 12 months playing DMZ and I really like the extraction vibe. And then the Battlefield mode as well is there to obviously encapsulate a huge audience. And it's just how they react to perhaps what Battlefield reveals in, let's say, like 9 months' time in the middle of next year. I'm assuming that's when they'll reveal something.
Yeah, May, April, like something, yeah.
Yeah, so, you got to have a look at how they respond to that. And also, just straight after launch, how they manage their game. How are they going to communicate with people? Or are they just going to do this is our game? Because it's free to play. That's another big element of here. Like, their incentive has got to be to continue to deliver content. And it's probably going to have some heavy monetization in it as well. So, there's still quite a few factors to think about as you get closer to launch for this game that's going to come out. Yeah, it's going to compete with Battlefield, but there's a lot of other elements in there that could really define how people perceive it. Because at the moment, we don't really know how they plan to monetize it. They haven't really spoken about it, so...
Yeah, and it's because it's a Chinese developer. It's a Chinese developer, right?
Yeah, I think it's... Is it Team Jade, I think, is producing it?
I know that they once made Call of Duty Mobile. That's all I know.
Yes, they did.
Yeah, so it's gonna be interesting to see how it goes. Also, just to end this topic about Delta Force, I just love the voiceovers in that game. It's so cringy. It's like this is clearly made by a developer that is not familiar with the Western culture. It's like that's how people think Westerners should sound.
Yeah, I agree.
It's like this lady with the arrows and everything's like, get ready to be shafted. I'm like,
No, you don't need to do that. You could just say recon bow out or whatever.
I mean, don't get me wrong. You're attractive, but I don't think I'm ready for that. just saying, I'm not at that level yet.
Isn't it really interesting though how like we have that concept in our head that we've both said like. I agree with you. I think some of the voice acting is really corny, and I find it hilarious.
Oh, no cap. One of the characters literally says no cap. I'm not kidding.
I just find it hilarious because we know it's being developed by a Chinese development team. So there is obviously a barrier there between a large group of what this game is being pitched to versus the people that are making it. Whereas for Battlefield 2042 and the horrific voice acting in that game, instantly everyone was like, "Oh, this is horrible." And look at the different reaction. But it's because I feel that DICE should have known better because they knew what audience they were targeting.
Yeah.
Whereas it's like the Chinese thing is there's probably like a cultural and a language barrier there, that they're going to struggle to get through initially because, not many Chinese games are that popular in Western culture. So, there's a real barrier there. Whereas DICE, I feel like with the special, they should have known better. They definitely should have known better.
Yeah, the thing is, Delta Force it's not selling itself real seriously, like, and we can forgive that. Like, you know what? We'll laugh about the get shafted and no cap thing. That's fine. It gives a nice giggle as long as the game is fine. Who cares, right? Because we know the context. But you're right. With Battlefield, they sure like, yeah, maybe it's not the right thing to do. Unless the game is like that. Unless that's the theme of the game. I don't care if it's a cartoony Fortnite type of thing. I don't care. As long as the game is good and it represents Battlefield in a good way, it's fine.
Yeah.
Might as well, like, for the last 10-15 minutes, I guess, we can talk about... What's your opinion about the Battle Royale coming to... Well, allegedly coming to the next Battlefield game?
Well, I mean, when we say allegedly, I think we know that Tom Henderson is is usually pretty bang on with his commentary and stuff like that, and I think he was the one that broke the story quite a while back.
Yeah, I don't like him for many different reasons, but I'll give him props for building some street cred over the last years. He's not that type of douche. He's became more mature and professional, so I'll respect that.
And do you know what? I completely understand it. I had some issues with Tom a few years ago. And to be fair, we got together, we spoke about it. It took a little bit of time and squashed the situation that we had, which is not an issue anymore. So like and
adults, right?
And that's the thing. He I'm sure he would admit that a few years ago some of the reporting is not quite up to the standard of the reporting that he does today. But I think that comes from experience, and I think that comes from genuinely just, getting a little bit older and a little bit wiser and understanding those kind of situations. So.
I mean, we were so different 10 years ago ourselves. Like when we were...
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sure we wouldn't react the way we react to certain
Fun
things
trivia
now.
for people. Fun trivia. Guess how Westie was named back when he started YouTube. Mr. Pro Westie.
There we go. And I can't get rid of that on Twitter, because if I do, I'll get rid of the tick disappears. And I can't get the @Westie handle. I can't get the @Westie handle. I literally can't get it. Even though I want it, someone is still logging into that account. So I cannot get it. I can't even request and say like, yeah, because yeah, it's really annoying. So we'll one day we'll get there. One day. One
day. But yeah, going back
Battle
on
Royale
Battle
for Battlefield. Okay. Again, I actually believe that Battle Royale and Battlefield should go hand in hand. I genuinely think that's the case.
Thank you. Thank you.
I think it diverges from the core concept of Battlefield. If we strip everything back, let's think about Battlefield 1942. That was 2 teams, and I said it earlier, 2 teams, 5 flags, you fight, best team wins, right? That's how it works. But you can apply that kind of same thing to Battle Royale. As long as you're, right, okay, teamwork. Bring in the squad play, bring in the teamwork, bring in the equipment that you have to, one person's got the armor box, and so, you need to go to them for armor plates, or you need to go to this person for medic and supplies and things like that. That all those concepts that Battlefield already has, I think can be applied to Battle Royale really well. And I actually think that the previous attempt, Firestorm, was a good attempt at a Battle Royale. I just think it came 2 years too late to the scene. I think it came too late.
About it. Firestorm was I did not enjoy it that much. It's like whatever. It's just a Battle Royale. And
that's what I mean. I think it arrived too late. If it had arrived 2 years earlier, when PUBG was the big Battle Royale, beginning of 2017, you imagine PUBG comes out, and then 6 months later, Battlefield are like, oh yeah, we did our own. So, but our Storm is a massive ring of fire. And,
which is a cool idea.
Yeah, and that back then would have been amazing, because it's like, oh my god, because back then Battle Royale was, it wasn't as full of fluff as it is now across the industry. If you look at Fortnite, look at how many things are involved in their quote unquote Battle Royale. There are so many other elements and mini games and mysteries and things to discover. Back in 2017, when PUBG first really came onto the scene and popularized what was very classic Battle Royale. Could you imagine if Firestorm had released 6 months after that? I think it would have taken off massively.
And if you imagine it was actually not locked behind a paywall and actually free to play.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
But in the new rumored one that's coming out, it does sound like they're basically taking the Call of Duty Warzone framework. So having a premium $70 title attached with a free-to-play Battle Royale element.
We also have to mention that the former developer that worked on Warzone, original Warzone, is working on this.
Byron Bead, he's leading it up, isn't he?
So that alone is like, oh, okay, I'm listening.
Yeah, you sit up and pay attention a little bit more than you were before. And then also, you've got someone like Vince Zampella, who is in charge of that entire Battlefield ecosystem now. And seems to be, taking it by the scruff of its neck by the sounds of it.
I have a couple of hot takes, though. Okay, so I remember originally about the Battle Royale news and everything. At first, me and Ray said, no, we don't want it. But as time went on, I'm realizing, but Battle Royale can still be part of Battlefield sandbox if done right.
Yep.
It can be, because at the end of the day, Battlefield to me is a sandbox, you know. And when I'm thinking, well, multiplayer can be something like Portal, make it Portal, but make it improve it. They make it the whole multiplayer that,
yes,
because at the end of the day, it's still, no matter how much I love Conquest, it's still it's still an arcade shooter. It's still a wannabe arena shooter. Sure, 64 players and in vehicles and everything, but it's just players in the confined area fighting each other and random particles smashing each other. We have a winner. So it's a real show. So Portal could be that for the multiplayer section.
Yeah.
Well, Battle Royale can be something more. I don't know what's the word I'm looking for. Not competitive.
You were saying you were sandbox, but also
yeah. Something more serious sandbox, or where it's fine to but at the same time I don't want to do the same thing as a Call of Duty does, for example. You play in the multiplayer just to unlock attachments, and then you go back to Warzone.
No, I agree, and I think that even if you go back to Battlefield 5, do you remember the breakthrough stuff where if it was, would it come down to? Oh no, it was the operations, and it would come down to like what was it called, final stand or something?
Oh yeah, like at the 5th round or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, do you know, to this day, in the public version of Battlefield 5, I have never experienced that.
I only
that
experienced it
mode.
once. I
Never
mean, guys, it's not my
experienced
favorite. It's not my favorite mode to begin with, but I only experienced it once. Yeah.
I think the idea is, though, they tried to implement the Battle Royale feeling into the Battlefield sandbox. So exactly what you're saying there. Like, there is a place for Battle Royale within Battlefield, and I actually think it's one of the best placed franchises for it. I just think they have to treat it right. And a lot of people will say that, I know that a lot of people play Battle Royale solo because it's actually a really good game mode to play without having... If you don't have friends that play the game, if it's got Battle Royale, it's actually a really good mode to play because game mode keeps you engaged for a good 20 to 25 minutes without really needing to focus on anyone else. But when it comes to Battlefield, I think like a 4-person structure for Battle Royale with, you know, an assigned... Someone's like, right, I'll play medic, you play recon, I'll play support.
That can be really fun, yeah.
That could actually be really good fun. And it could be that, you know, like, okay, we're going to play 2 recons and 2 medics because, you know, we got 2 people that like playing snipers but are really good, and then we've got 2 people who really like SMGs and playing close range. But the recons can provide all the spotting and all of the information gathering, and then the medics can do the up close fighting, but can provide like heals for the entire squad and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
all within a closing circle where, you know, your environment's changing because some guy came along with an RPG and blew a hole in the wall, and that vehicle over there is barreling towards you, and it's got 4 men in it, and they're about to jump out. All that kind of stuff. You know,
imagine instead of loadouts like we have in Warzone, you have classes.
Yes.
You know, that alone can be quite interesting mechanic if done right. You know,
I absolutely agree. I think that could be very interesting where like you're playing a defined role, and by picking that defined role, you're like, right, okay, so I have access to this equipment. So you've still got a pool of equipment that you can use, but it's not like you can pick the really powerful stuff from this part of the game and the other really powerful stuff from that part of the game and put them together, which is essentially Call of Duty's loadout system. Instead, it's like I have to make a conscious choice. Right, okay, I'll do this cool part of the game as a medic because I like doing that, but my teammate will have to do the support and the ammo side of it, so we're going to have to rely on each other a little bit.
Yeah. I don't know. We'll see how the Battle Royale thing goes. Like I said, it's a part of Battlefield Sandbox. If done right, it can be really fun. What's your opinion?
Sorry, one more thing I will say on the Battle Royale
go.
thing, and we mustn't mistake the marketing angle of it. You know why you want to create a free-to-play part of your game, because obviously player retention and player numbers are king. That's why you want to... EA are going to be heavily invested in keeping people playing the game for as long as possible. It's proven already over multiple years now that Battle Royale games keep people engaged for longer than other traditional game modes. Otherwise, Fortnite wouldn't have done it. Call of Duty wouldn't have done it. Apex wouldn't be here. So all these kind of things, you know, you have to look at it from that standpoint of like EA are a company and they want to make money, and Battle Royale is a surefire way to make more money.
Definitely, yeah. I was actually like thinking like, okay, because the thing with Battle Royale, Battlefield community might bitch about, oh, we don't need a Battle Royale, just make a good Battlefield game. I'm like, yeah, different times, we live in different times, and I keep saying this like a broken record. People after Warzone, after PUBG, after Fortnite, they tasted something that important, something big that is worth fighting for, getting that, you know, victory battle, you know, in Battle Royale, whatever. That feels so. Doesn't matter if it's like your first one, on the 10th one, on the 100th one. It still feels amazing to get that victory in a Battle Royale, because you don't get those that often, no matter how good you... Well, sure, if you're a professional, but whatever. But majority of the people, 99% of the people that play Battle Royales, don't get them every day, don't get them every 2 days or whatever. So they finally experience that something important, something big, that arcade shooters, arena shooters can't really offer anymore. Sure, you can play your Battlefield, like with vehicles and jets and everything, but what are you fighting for at the end? Why are you playing this game? What makes it this exciting? Is it the chaos or whatever? And Battle Royales, all that kind of stuff, they showed people, even to the casuals that don't really play first-person shooters, they're like, oh wow, that adrenaline, something to fight for. And Battlefield does need it. Just Battlefield being just a good Battlefield game is not enough. No matter how much I hate to say it, no matter how much I hate. But if I was an executive at EA, like I would make something to compete with all those other games because we can't just make a good game. That's not enough.
I also think that if you scale right out and you look at where Battlefield is positioned as a first-person shooter. You've got Call of Duty down one end, which, provides the really twitchy 6v6, like, casual side of it. And then you've got, like, the hardcore shooters up the other end. Like the people that really want to get into the nitty-gritty with their guns and don't mind dying to one bullet to the foot and all this kind of stuff in a game. Like, Battlefield kind of exists between the two. And so, Call of Duty, on that side of it, you can see why people get that, because they want that, that Adderall fix really, really quick all the time. Whereas, and on the other end, with the hardcore side of it, people like, they want to create a team together. They want to move into battle together. They want to do all these things together. And they like to live through that experience. Like, it might be 3 hours long in some of those games. Battlefield exists in the middle, and so therefore doesn't satisfy either of those groups. So, like you've just said, by implementing something into the game to give people a reason to keep playing, if that happens to be a battle royale, then I think that I think the people that create Battlefield are going to take that option, because I totally agree with you. Sometimes I do struggle, especially at the end of like a conquest match. You can feel a little bit like, oh, what did I really achieve?
Yeah, I've been there, done that.
Yeah, not every round of conquest is going to be the most amazing round you've ever played, is it? It's not going to be that way. Whereas with Call of Duty, you get that instant fix of gunfights all the time, and you can kind of forget about the win, but you're getting that like dopamine hit of the gunfights and the hit markers.
Or even even when you're not really that good, and you're just playing a battle royale. Let's say you have like 0.5 KD or something like that, and you're like in the last circle with other 2-3 players. I'm like, that's exciting for that player.
Yeah, absolutely.
They might not win, but it's exciting.
I remember the first few rounds playing Warzone back in 2020, and I was like, I have no idea how to play this game, but I am in. There's 10 other people alive. I am standing in a bush in the middle of nowhere, and this is obviously the worst gameplay you've ever seen. But those first those moments of when you're experiencing it for the first time, you're like, crap, this is all on me now. I have to try and win.
You can feel your heart pumping.
Your heart is literally going.
My God, Warzone is the only game that actually makes my heart fucking go fast. Like,
it does.
like no other games. Like, unless when I play competitive matches, that's different. But it's like, oh shit, I feel it.
Yeah, it actually does make your heart rate go up a little bit, and especially if you're not, like you say, if you're not in that position as often as some other people. When you get to that moment, you're like, oh my God, I can see why people play this, because it actually gets your heart going. So if Battlefield needs to implement something like that, I wouldn't be opposed to it, because I do agree with you. I do feel that sometimes Battlefield lacks that feeling of like, why am I playing this game?
I will never forget when we were playing Warzone, and my girlfriend, she doesn't play first-person shooters, let alone try to carry someone in a first-person shooter. Basically, all of us were dead. The whole squad was dead. She was the only one alive. 10 people alive, solos only left. No squads alive, just solos. She won that game, carried us, and when she did the loudest scream I ever heard. It's like, fuck yeah! It's like all of us went. Yeah, all of us went just stupid. I think I have it on YouTube somewhere in my highlight reel. It's like, fuck yeah! It's just you cannot replicate that unless you're literally playing in War Series of Warzone yourself as a professional player. That's the only way you can replicate that, and that's what people felt in video. That's what they realized. Why they play video games.
Absolutely.
So it's just it's just one of those things that you can like. I was like thinking, okay, what if not a battle royale? What Battlefield could have? Well, I would say people still scold me for that. What about Battlefield Incursions? Have you ever played Battlefield 1 Incursions by any chance?
I think I played it twice.
I think it was a fantastic competitive Battlefield mode. It was Battlefield, it had destruction, it had classes, it had vehicles, and it was fair, fun, and exciting. I think that would be the nice alternative to Battle Royale. But no matter how much I love competitive, shooters like that, and I would love to see Battlefield 2 to be like, not an esport, but just a competitive mode where you like there's rank and everything, balance. There's like wanna be League of Legends, but first person shooter, right? For me, that sounds exciting. If not Battle Royale, at least that, because there's something to play for. Something to fight for. And Battlefield 1 Incursions, I will die on this hill, I think is the best rendition of comparative Battlefield. I think it's one of the best things that ever happened. Sure, it was rough on the edges, like it was not perfect, all that kind of stuff, and also it was Battlefield 1. But the idea was there. So that would be a nice alternative for me personally. If it's not Battle Royale, I'm not really into extraction shooters that much, but if it's not Battle Royale extraction shooter, I will take a comparative 5-on-5 Battlefield mode if done right.
That's the thing. Like you say, it has to be done right. And that's where I think they will probably go with the Battle Royale, because they have so many competitors that they can draw inspiration from. Because there's so many other people already doing it. They can be like, these things work for our competitors. How can we fit those things into our Battlefield experience? So that's the only stipulation I'll say. I wouldn't mind a competitive incursions mode either. But I think that based on how the franchise has gone for the last 5 years, I think they'll play it as safe as they can.
Oh yeah,
but also they'll play it safe by implementing what they know people will actually play. Yeah,
and I think, like I said, I'll die on this hill. Incursions, I think it was a fantastic mode and everything, but also there's like this stigma happening right now around the gaming communities that you're not allowed to be good in a video game unless you're a cheat or something like that. It's so dumb. It's like I remember back in the days, like where you saw a good player, like, I would like to play like him one day. And now it's like every time you see a guy sliding and being good in a video game, like sliding everywhere, jumping around, just killing the whole team, and assuming he's not cheating, that person is not cheating. Assuming that person's not cheating, like, yo, fuck that guy, fucking swear Lord, get alive. That's the stigma we have. So, and if Battlefield, let's say, makes a comparative shooter like Incursions, like, Battlefield doesn't need. Battlefield needs a bigger player numbers, or needs jets and vehicles, because chaos and stuff. Like the Battlefield community would hate this mode with guts, and I hate the fact. And the reason I would even say that is because they will be unique from everything else in competitive space. There's nothing out there in first-person shooters that has destruction, has vehicles. I mean, sure, you can have classes, but there's nothing out there. Because we have what? CSGO, Rainbow Six, sure, you can say maybe Warzone, World Series of Warzone maybe is the closest thing that we have that something's like big, right? Something big and comparative. No matter what you think about if it's a comparative or not, that's not the point. The point is, if you're good enough, you can qualify for the tournament and try to win $1 million. So that's a thing. That's a thing. Regardless what people might think.
Absolutely.
But yeah, Battle Royale, I have high hopes for it.
Yeah, I have high hopes too, especially with the people that are in charge. I just hope that by those people that are in charge, that obviously they've been put there for a reason by people at EA who are like, you know what you're doing, so we're going to give you the job. I just hope they're allowed to do their job. Do you know what I mean?
Hopefully, yeah.
Because I do feel like EA sometimes get in their own way. And they go, right, we need to do something, and then they just don't quite have the conviction to do it. Whereas I look at the past. If you look at Apex, that's an example of where people in charge had an idea, they executed it, and they convinced EA that it was the right thing to do. And
EA was too late to stop it at that point.
Of course they were. But
when they bought
Respawn,
Respawn, it was too late.
But of course, at the same time, EA could have gone, well, no, we're going to cancel that project. We're not going to do that. We don't want to do that, or whatever. And they sort of went out of their way and went, no, we're going to do this, and we know what we're doing. And like as an example, that's a really good situation where EA got a win out of it, even though most of it was Respawn anyway. But I just hope that the people in charge are able to do their job properly, and that there's not too many blockers in the way, so to speak.
Yeah. And regarding the next Battlefield game, just quick mentions and everything. I don't know if the game is going to be good. I don't know what they have, but I do have a feeling that when it comes to the aesthetics the team and just the idea behind it. I think they're gonna nail that. I want to believe that they learned their lessons, they know what they want, and they will try to execute that to a T. Whether the game will be good, that's a different story. But when it comes to aesthetics, just the presentation of the game, I think they will nail that.
Yeah, I think we know that when it comes to Battlefield games, that we usually expect something that looks very grandiose and like the point that they want to go on, like what it is, what's their North Star. They tend to get quite close to that. I'd actually say that 2042 was, I don't know how you feel, but like the tone of it didn't quite, like we said, with the specialists and then the actual overall game.
I mean, marketing was fantastic, though.
Marketing was incredible. The first trailer was out of this world.
Yeah, marketing was fantastic.
And that's the thing. Like, a lot of the time, I feel like they know what they want to make. And you said it earlier in the podcast that they just weren't able to execute on what they wanted to do with the time that they had. It needed more time. And they had lots of good ideas, but all of them were underbaked. So I hope that this time, whatever they do produce is technically a good game and it is ready to come out. But of course, you're never going to know perception on a game until it actually launches. So that's a completely different conversation, really.
Yeah. But yeah, do you have any different things that I don't know, think about the next Battlefield game? Like anything that you might want to see? Something that tickles your fancy? Any ideas, requests, demands?
I think 2042, for all the criticism it gets, I understand what they tried to do by creating a lore and a narrative. I think they were misguided not to do a single player. Because I think it's very difficult to create a focal point around a story in a video game if you don't create a actual story for people to play out through the game. I understand they were like, right, we're going to do, because they did do like one episode of like a podcast. They did like a...
Oh my god, yeah. Oh my god.
They did do that. And then they had like a website with like bios and things like that.
I'm so sad they never continued with that. But then I was expecting that. That's so EA though. That's so EA. Like they make something like that, right? And they never commit. And like at least little bit,
just
little
follow
bit?
through. Just follow through.
Like,
and that's what I mean.
Yeah, how many times they did that? Yeah, go on.
That's what I mean. Like, if you're gonna do that, I really liked the idea with 2042 that they had like a podcast. They did do that animated video, and there was definitely more of that plan that just never came out. We had stuff on like the website and all that kind of stuff. I liked all of that. But because there was no single player to play through, you never really truly got the context, like the larger context of what was going on, because most people expect to play a single player to give them that context, and they didn't have that. So I'm not saying that this next Battlefield game, it should be all about the single player and all about the narrative, but if you're going to do a narrative, do it right.
Yeah,
so
provide the narrative, yeah.
It doesn't need to be a 6-hour-long epic single player. It doesn't need to be mega. It can be a 4-hour single player, but as long as you do it right. Like, it's really easy to build characters in a single player because people play through it and they actually listen to the storyline. They listen to the voice acting. You start to get that feeling for it. And they kind of got halfway there with 2042, but they just didn't execute on it properly. So I'd love to see them do like the animated stuff and the podcast and all the lore and all the little secrets again for this next Battlefield game. If that's what they're planning, I'd love to see them do it.
What do you mean you don't read the banner cards from the game that has like 12 pages, PDF pages or whatever about the lore?
I would have read it if I cared about the single player, and they didn't make one.
Oh no, West, I read them. My god, it's dumb. It's dumb. Yeah. Oh my god, it's dumb. It's so fucking dumb.
But that's the problem. I feel like without further context, like if you have a good single player with more context, whether it's dumb or not, that stuff can then exist naturally on its own, and people can engage with that if they want to. And I kind of feel like if you can engage with it if you want to in 2042, but it was like, well, I'm missing a lot of the build up and the setting here, and you're not really giving me that. So I feel like that could be really cool for the next Battlefield game. I don't want any gimmicks in multiplayer, and I'm talking behemoths and Levolution and stuff like that. I don't need gimmicks. Just make good maps to begin with, and then you won't need a gimmick in the middle. Like Battlefield 3 for me had some of the best maps for infantry and vehicle combined arms. Like if you do the Aftermath DLC, that was incredible for
They were
combined
good
arms.
maps,
It was
yeah.
so
They were good
good
maps,
for
yeah.
combined arms. And I don't really feel like 2042 never got anywhere near close with that kind of stuff, because also having one map per season is absolutely criminal for a Battlefield game. You can't do that. You got to have at least two. At least two.
I can forgive the guns, because for me personally, when I play a Battlefield game, I'm sorry, you might be a real unpopular opinion, but I'll say it. Guns is not the content for Battlefield games.
Okay.
It's maps. It's maps. It's
Maps is the big number.
locations, equipment, vehicles, all that kind of stuff. I think that's more important than a couple of more guns.
Yes,
Sure, guns are exciting. Don't get me wrong. It's a first-person shooter, but I'd rather have one gun new season and two maps than two guns a season and one map. You know, I'd rather have maps and locations. So, you know, that's sandbox. You know.
Yeah, absolutely. And if the sandbox becomes stale, people get bored and they stop playing. So if you don't keep the sandbox fresh with like you say, new toys, which is the new maps and changing stuff, then people will just get bored of it. So for me, it's got to be, if you're going to do a narrative experience, you got to do it right. So actually do a single player, and then in the multiplayer, no gimmicks, and yeah, definitely focus on maps, because having the first 4 seasons of Battlefield 2042 and they were only doing one map per season, and they were 3 months long. Like, yeah, and we used to get DLCs from Premium. Let's take the money comparison out of it. Let's just literally look at the content provided from each different version. Premium gave me 4 maps per DLC every 3 months. Live service gave me 1.
You had a team.
Yeah, it had a dedicated team that made all of that content. So
that's why I really enjoy. Like, forget the premium thing, right? I get premium is not coming back. I get, because, and I agree with that. Premium is not the best business model these days, but it was a team. You know, you get this specific type of maps for this DLC. You have your close quarters maps, you have your big maps or whatever, and there was something behind it. Like Battlefield 4 DLCs, fantastic. Each of them was so different from each other. Like, oh, Chinese invasion. Then we're fighting back China. Oh, we're invading China, you know?
Yeah.
And then we have Final Stand, like there's a prequel to 2142 and all that kind of stuff. That's cool, you know?
Yeah, that's cool.
We don't have that anymore, sadly.
No, we don't. And like each season that went past, the map didn't really feel like, again, this comes from the fact that 2042 didn't have a proper narrative connection, because they built up this huge lore before launch, and then at launch, no single player, and basically all of the lore got cancelled afterwards. So each of the maps felt completely disconnected from the game. Like, it could have been any random location anywhere in the world. It didn't matter. Whereas, like you say, the themed seasons, even though it didn't go anywhere near as deep with like Battlefield 3 and Battlefield 4, having those DLCs that were centered around a theme, at least you knew when you were getting that DLC, you knew what to expect straight out of the gate. So I think made that a lot more entertaining in terms of content.
Yep. As we're ending the podcast, just a quick mention. How you felt about the what's his name? Ridgeline Studios founder, Marcus Leto.
Oh, Marcus Leto.
Yeah, Marcus Leto. How you felt about that? I was angry about that.
About how he left.
Just general idea what happened. Yeah, I don't know the details, but I was really pissed about the, like, you literally founded a studio 2 years ago, showed nothing. There was then pre-production or about to do production and everything, and you just literally canned the studio.
I think it's I think it was a tragedy of the COVID bubble, because, you know, during COVID, how much money was raining into the pockets of video game developers. And I think that maybe they thought, right, this is a great way to, you know, get specific teams focusing on different parts of the game so that, you know, there's less crossover, but then everyone's working towards individual goals. So I think the idea initially was great. But yeah, being cancelling it off and then handing over the single player to Criterion, where have we heard that before?
And I think Motive is doing something too for it.
Yeah, and like this is, I feel like we kind of had this story for Battlefield 5 and 2042 where, you know, other studios came in during development. We're seeing a similar narrative play out.
That's
here.
why I was angry. Yeah, I was angry because this is the same story, and I already called it the next single player game. No matter how much copium I might consume, it's not gonna be good. It's gonna be bare bones single player game. Doesn't matter what the story is. It's gonna be a very bare bones, not good single player. It's already there. Like unless a miracle happens.
Yeah,
but I'll be realistic here. Like, I'm sorry, we've been here before.
Yeah, we have been here before, and I don't fully expect the scope of certain things to be what they originally were. And don't get me wrong, we all know that things during development are, theorized, and then they're planned, and then they create like a base version, and then they get scrapped because they're like, no, that's not important for the game anymore, and we're doing something different. That's totally normal part of development. But creating an entire studio to do the narrative side, because they called it the Battlefield universe. Do you remember that announcement?
I've been talking about. We literally made an episode just about that. About that.
You've got that was the idea, that this new studio would head up all of the single player narrative stuff. And now all of that has been handed off to another studio somewhere during development, or may now be restarted. Who knows?
Angry again. I'm angry.
Just angry thinking about it.
Even though it's 29 degrees, it's not. That's why my blood is boiling right now. It's just like you had it. You literally had it there, EA. Yeah. You had it in your palm of your hand.
Yeah, it's crazy, and I think it's really sad because lots of developers will have uprooted their life to be at that studio as well. So if you actually think about the human side of it, like there's a lot of developers that would have gone, right, I'm part of a new studio. I'm under the EA banner. This is great. Like, potentially there's a certain amount of security that comes with that. Oh, no, wait.
One of the biggest brands out there. Nope.
Yeah. No, it's gone. And it does make, like, when it makes a bit of a mockery of the entire situation. Oh, yeah. and it gives people more reason to look at the next Battlefield game and not believe that it's going to be a good product. I mean, fair enough, there's not many things out there that would convince you that the next Battlefield game is going to be a total success. I don't think EA has done enough to deserve that kind of respect at the moment, because let's face it, the last couple of games they've launched have not been that brilliant. They've got to earn that respect back. But when you do something like this, where you make a new studio and you publicly announce it and almost market it as a big part of your next game, and then, not so quietly cancel that studio and completely shut it down 18 months later, it's not a good look, is it? It doesn't inspire confidence at all.
Okay, let's play a game. Let me quickly Google if the Ridgeline Games website is still up.
Okay, here we go. Right, drum roll.
It's up.
It's still up. It's still up.
Let me read you the About page.
Okay.
Marcus Leto will be leading the Ridgeline team and bringing his long legacy of creating fascinating worlds and gripping narratives to Battlefield TM.
No way. Our
team is composed of leaders and talent with a vast array of AAA game development experience. What we stand for, blah blah blah, and this one, this is the cherry on top, at the bottom of the website. Our promise: we're here to create immersive narrative experiences within the Battlefield TM franchise and bring players memorable new characters, amazing spectacle, and thrilling experience.
That is incredible. Why is that still up?
I don't fucking know.
Why don't you just take it offline? That's such an easy way. If you want people to forget about it, get rid of it.
God. Well, we can also go deeper and see if the Ridgeline Studios logo still appears in latest EA marketing for Battlefield 2022, if they're like a bundle or some shit. I don't know.
They probably would.
Yeah, probably actually. God, that makes me so angry.
Yeah, that's crazy, man. I mean, does the Twitter account? The Twitter account doesn't exist. Okay, they've done something.
Oh, really? Oh my God.
The Instagram account doesn't exist.
Oh my God, hallelujah.
Yeah, if you look at down the bottom, it says join the conversation. X, Instagram and Facebook. If you click X and Instagram, they both don't exist, but the page for the dev team still exists.
Oh my God.
Well, this was fun.
I love it. Like,
I know.
I love it.
I don't mind talking about I will still say Battlefield is my favorite game franchise. I do love Battlefield.
Yeah.
But sometimes detaching, as I did because I had the luxury of being a content creator and following a trend, detaching myself from it enabled me to not feel so angered by it. But it just made me feel sad because I look at it and I look at what once was a great franchise that people, revered. I mean, think back to Battlefield 3 days, right? 2011. At that point, Battlefield was almost neck and neck with COD. Like, honestly, almost neck and neck of being like the number one casual first-person shooter on the market.
It was
It was right there. And then, I'll be honest, after
we were
BF4,
there when the legends were written. We were there.
Yeah, exactly. We were there. But it's just been a bit of a downhill since then. It was a slow downhill with BF4 because BF4 just started badly and just didn't have a great reputation. Hardline was a big drop.
Let's pretend Hardline didn't exist.
Battlefield 1 was like a climb back up, but then a steady decline down. 5 was a big drop, and 2042, we may as well have been underneath the bedrock at that point. So, the only way is up. Please, God, let us hope.
One can only hope, yeah, one can only hope.
Please.
It's like, and I know some DICE developers are listening to us, like, we believe in you.
Yes,
please. You have our support, but please forgive us if we don't feel confident whatsoever. And I hope... I host a Battlefield podcast, for God's sake.
It's hopium.
Oh, yeah.
It's real hopium. Like, we're at that point where, like, I'm not expecting something amazing, but I want something amazing. That's the situation.
Yeah.
Like,
I want to be surprised.
Yeah, I want to be... give me, the whole excitement of, like, revealing Battlefield 1 again, and nobody had a clue what you were about to drop. Even the reveal of 2042, that trailer, like, that feeling again. But this time, back it up with a solid game. Please.
Marketing is always important, like, but yeah.
Maybe the implementation of the video game must be stronger this time.
Yeah, like you're like, oh, we'll never have a sequel to our Bible. I want a sequel to the, Bible 2. I want this to be Bible 2. Yeah, Bible 2. I want the
Bible
sequel
2,
to the Bible. Yeah.
Boogaloo. Let's go.
Yeah, let's go. But yeah, I was planning for us to talk for an hour, and we've been talking for an hour and a half. So
yeah. It's Battlefield. We can talk for ages.
Oh my God, I'm pretty sure we can talk for another 2 hours if you ask me.
We definitely could.
Yeah, but yeah, for the audience sake, we're just gonna end it here. So I'm just gonna say this. So first and foremost, thank you guys, everyone listening. For the whole thing, or even in parts, it's fine. I don't care. As long as you're listening and you're enjoying what we have to say, that's all that matters to me. And I'm grateful that you guys are listening to us, and that I can't be more lucky. Thank you everyone for that. And thank you, Westie, for coming on the podcast. Thank you for talking about Battlefield, just shooting the shit, talking about anything.
Problem. Thank you for having me. I've really enjoyed it. It's been good fun.
Yeah, so let's try to bring now Jack Frags, Level Cap, the Boomer podcast. Battlefield Boomer podcast. Here we go. We need to make that thing now. Yeah. So I know I already talked to Flagfire, so hopefully he's gonna come on soon. I'll bring all of us back in.
Yeah, bring us all back together.
Yeah, all back. It's like bring the gang back,
Absolutely.
So thank you for coming on the podcast, and yeah, on my end, so you can find me on social media everywhere. TheLankySoldier, it's the same name everywhere. Check out Patreon, patreon.com/TheLankySoldier, where we have exclusive episodes where we talk about kind of pretty much everything behind the scenes, extra episodes, all that kind of stuff, and yeah, and early access to this episode with no ads. And yeah, patreon.com/TheLankySoldier. I can't speak at this point. And Westie, where they can find you, so people don't.
They can find me youtube.com/Westie. I'm not calling it X. Twitter.com/
Me too, yeah.
Twitter.com/Mr. Pro Westie. Those are my two places you can find me.
I love them, Mr. Pro Westie. Didn't you have the number originally too?
My YouTube channel used to be The Westie 4321. And then YouTube gave you you could just get rid of that and have something else instead. So that's what I did.
Yeah, I remember that. But yeah, thank you guys for listening. Thank you so much for everything. Don't forget to use the Google Forms document, or tell us on Twitter, not X, Twitter, what you think about the podcast, everything, feedback, insults, comments, that's fine, whatever. Just let us know, and we'll read it through it and for the next episode. So thank you guys for listening. We'll see you guys in the next one, and don't be a douchebag.